Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot, Patch Company, VZ Grips, MAF Corporation, and FFL Payment Processing. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew LaRosiere, and I'm joined today by... Oh, look!
Me, culturally appropriated rat, for no reason at all.
Yeah, it's for no reason at all. It's the Bear Creek Arsenal rat.
Yeah, Bear Creek Arsenal's making plastic MP5s now. Awesome.
Yeah, whatever. Sure. But yeah, no, that dovetails in nicely with what we're first going to talk about. And that is a subject that has caused an incredible amount of anger to be directed at us. So here's the thing. United States versus Carbajal Flores came down the other week, right? This is a district court opinion, which basically stands for the proposition that, hey, the Second Amendment includes all people inside the United States, and thus, since 922G5 says anyone who is unlawfully present, and on top of that, people who are lawfully present, but like under certain categories, are immediately stripped of their right to arms. That's not consistent with the text, history, and tradition. They found this, the district court found this by looking at the historically analogous laws that the government put forward, which were disarmament of Black people and
British loyalists, right?
Loyalists, right? And the loyalist was the like thrust of the government's argument here. And the court actually sat and looked at the laws, right? Because how and why is what really matters. So that the how is, well, yes, if you were actually found to be a like British loyalist, they would say, okay, well, we're going to take these away. But if you were nonviolent, right, and it was pretty easy to go through a process of saying, hey, I'm sensitive to the cause of liberty, I'm nonviolent, I have no intention of overthrowing this government, I just like the British, they'd give you your guns back. So the court said it's not analogous, and that was the decision, and it caused a right shitstorm.
Like, there's a lot of reasons that I think the shitstorm caught on as much as it did, and I think the thing that caused the most of it is certainly I think most viewers are understanding of the fact that most news is sensationalist and intentionally written to make you mad. Yeah. I went and read like at least 15 of the news stories talking about this by this point. Two of them mentioned that, correctly mentioned, this is an as applied challenge, and this judge made this decision based off of the facts of this case. It's important to understand the facts in this case is that this guy was in the country, undocumented, an illegal alien, if you will. However, he was nonviolent, had no prior convictions. It's not like he'd been deported before or anything, had been in the country it's not like he just crossed the border, right? He had a job, like he was here being a productive person, no criminal history. He was charged with simple possession of a handgun in Chicago, and he explained to the police his reason for having it is, dude, I live in Chicago. I think that's an incredibly sympathetic situation for it's not like this guy was a gangbanger, right, who was here just to sell drugs and cause harm and be a uncool person. He was trying to make his way through life, make a living, and had a handgun because, dude, he lives in Chicago.
Yeah, he lives in Chicago. It's kind of a bit silly not to have a handgun. And so, like, here's the thing. The gut reaction from... I'm trying to talk about this without immediately pissing off my core audience, which is hard for me. But you have to like stop and think about this step by step, because I'll cut to the end here. I came out and I said, hey, this case was correctly decided. And oh my God,
People really didn't like that.
People got so unbelievably angry at me, and they were saying, like, I'm sorry, but the stuff that they were saying to like say I was wrong is actually retarded.
I agree. Retarded's the word for it.
Like it's not just stupid. It's not just ill-informed. It's actually like, I'm sorry. And again, hear me out before thinking I'm talking about your opinion, because you might have a nuanced opinion, right? But the things people were saying, like, but they're breaking the law, or but they're felons. That's not stupid. That's a different kind of like knuckle dragging, window licking, like fucking retarded, like
yes,
rarted even. That I
regarded.
It's dearly regarded. And so here's the thing that really like caused this to light up and specifically put me, and then after me, because Ivan's one of the best friends you could ever ask for, also you, in the crossfire, was the reload. Basically, I got into a fight with, so Matthew Larosiere got into a fight with Konstantinos Moros over whether or not illegal guns should have guns, which I just love, by the way. And Gutowski on the reload's like, hey, you both need to write dueling pieces. So we both wrote a piece on it. We both wrote like 1,200 words. He said 600 to 800, and we were both like, no. So we both wrote our sides. Interestingly, Kostas, when he wrote his article, and Kostas is a friend, I'm not dumping on him, he straight said the natural right clearly obviously extends to undocumented immigrants, but I'm making a legal technical argument, is what he was saying. And he wasn't even, his was even couched in, this is what I think the court would say. Not necessarily right espousing it.
This is what I think is the conclusion that they should arrive at.
Right.
Is what the conclusion I think they are likely to arrive at. And
right.
it's unfortunate how often those two find themselves at odds with our whole impartial judiciary.
Right. And so my piece was just straight up, here's the law. I didn't even make a moralistic argument, right? I was just like, that's the term the people, right? So there's a two-step analysis here, right? One, are they the people? Two, if they are the people, we have to look at and see whether or not disarmament is supported by text history and tradition. If they're not part of the people, we don't go to step two, right? And then I go into the analysis. Here's the thing. You do not have to like illegal immigrants.
You can hate them, actually, if you want to.
Yeah, but you don't have to have any opinion specifically relating to illegal immigrants to agree that Carbajal Flores was decided correctly. And it's really dangerous to jump the gun to, and so here's where I'm like risking pissing everyone off, right? The people who are angry about this are overwhelmingly Republican, right? And they're and I was pissed on Kiwi Farms, right? They're calling me a libertarian, right? He's a fucking libertarian
with no borders.
Yeah, so that's fine. I started my career at Cato. You got me. I don't like the government, and I never will. But that aside, there's a question here that's being asked, and it's, can we disarm this person? It's not asking, should we let everyone in? It's not asking,
it doesn't even say, should everyone who is an illegal immigrant be able to have a gun? It doesn't say that.
It's asking, in fact, this guy.
It's very nuanced on its analysis of the reason this guy, they even come right out and say that the reason that the analog about British loyalists doesn't fit is because British loyalists who showed they were nonviolent could have guns, right? If they didn't say death to America, long live the king,
king queen.
We want more of the king queenliness. So they, it said that as long as they didn't say that, as long as they weren't violent, it was fine. And so, the people beating this drum, I guess that was like this rhetoric sort of started with Texas. Where it's like, oh, these people are armed invaders. They're
armed invaders. Yeah, whatever. Okay,
yeah, dangerous armed invaders.
We'll get to that. That's down the road, right? I think the thing that people are struggling with and why they're getting mad at me is they think that I'm saying the border should be open. They should all be able to come in with guns or whatever. And I may actually think that, but that's not the argument I was making. The question is, this specific situation, you have to look at it absent everything else. Like, you know, who is it that they're saying the name of, whatever, who was killed by illegal aliens? Horrible, right? It's telling me to say her name. No, but anyway, absent all of that, in a vacuum, what are we looking at? We're looking at an individual with no propensity for violence. Okay. No proven propensity for violence.
Right. No conviction whatsoever.
Has existed in this country for years, right? Tried, and if you look, tried to legally get a gun, right? There's no way. Like, there could have been a way that he could have a rifle or whatever. He needed a handgun. He was living in Chicago, guys. Like, that situation, does the government get to say, well, you can't have one at all, so we need to dig down into that? Well, okay, so what's the hook? Why are they saying you can't have it? Well, he's unlawfully in the country. Okay, so now we have to examine that piece. And this is presupposing they're part of the people, which that's a whole separate argument, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think this is more important to talk about why we need to drive into that. We need to analyze that crime. Is it consistent with the text, history, and tradition of the United States in disarming people? Well, it's actually very nice in any other instance, because there's very limited categories of people who are historically disarmed.
Yep.
The times where this matters, especially in the federal context, is at the time of the founding. Okay. The 14th Amendment doesn't matter because this is a federal prohibition, right? So laws at the Civil War don't really matter, and also they wouldn't point to this anyway. But so at the time of the founding, who were the people that were disarmed? Free blacks, British loyalists, and then also there's one that these people always forget. The broadest category, right, that wasn't specifically tied to being related, like directly connected to a warring nation like Native Americans, who were not only not considered human beings, but were considered part of a warring nation, okay, was disaffected people. And like, loyalists fit under this umbrella of disaffected. And these were people who were like not sympathetic with liberty, and otherwise like not happy about the outcome of the Revolutionary War. Those people were categorically disarmed. And you know how you got your right to arms back if you were disarmed as a disaffected person? You swear an oath to liberty.
Which you could do in state or federal courts, by the way, which is just fascinating.
You can do it at your county, like literally before the local courthouse. You just say, all right, I swear I believe in the right of my fellow man. Okay, here's your gun back. Sometimes they would physically, by the way, return the gun, which was fun. That's the historical analog. And the same thing applied to British loyalists. So that's the how and why there. So now let's compare it to illegal aliens. You can say anything you want about crimes they're likely to commit, whatever. I'm not going to argue that, one, because it's not correct. It actually takes 3 generations for their children to become as violent as natural-born Americans, but that's beside the point. That's not relevant. That's not relevant at all. What's relevant is the actual conduct itself in a vacuum. And I'll explain why all this is relevant later, because it matters for you. What they are accused of is being here outside of a specified legal procedure. By the way, unlawful presence in the country was not a crime until our lifetimes. Yep. Before that, it was infraction. It was like a parking ticket. And unlawful entry didn't exist until around the New Deal era. It was really the 20s because Chinese people worked too hard. And so we said we didn't want any more of them. And that's how you got unlawful entry. So not only is like unlawful entry and unlawful presence not recognized as crimes, the fact is, compared to those other, ways of disarmament that were easily fixed, you can't, some people, right? Some peaceable people cannot fix their immigration status because it is literally impossible to immigrate for some people. And they may have reasons or whatever, but the point is, if we go into that, oh, but they're likely to do this or they're unlikely to do that on either side, that's interest balancing. Yep. That's what the Supreme Court said you're specifically not allowed to do. So that's why it's important. We have to strictly look at the category in history and compare it to the category that they're drawing now. And you're not allowed a balancing test. If you start to argue, right? If you start to argue, oh, well, they're the coyotes and they bring in and the belt feds and the 50 cals, right? Well, then you're inviting counter arguments, not just in this case, by the way. You're inviting that type of rhetoric in any Second Amendment case. You don't want that at all.
And in fact, that's why the Supreme Court specifically said, fuck off and stop doing it.
Yes. So the common threads that I'd see in response to the people telling me how terrible I am were, they're felons. Okay, no, they're not.
If you get deported once and then you come back in, sometimes you can become a felon after you're convicted.
Right. And this is something that is barely a misdemeanor, right, on its face, right? Okay.
And especially with the whole people beating the drum of, I should be able to smoke pot and own a gun. Bang, bang, bang. I'm beating on this drum because I'm nonviolent. Because I'm not doing anybody any harm. Unlawful presence in a country doesn't harm anyone unless you're like.
No, the whole thing is, I wasn't even going to say that because they're gonna say how this and that in the economy. And let's say you're right about all of that, and let's say it would make the most financial sense, let's say, to deport all of these people as fast as possible. You can still believe that, while also still believe that disarming them for no other reason is not consistent with the Second Amendment. It's okay to believe both things.
You can believe two things at once. It's wild. You should try it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I think that a lot of these people are not wanting to struggle with the fact that to be ideologically consistent means sometimes you have to respect the rights of people that you do not like. But guess what? If it's only for like sunshine and happy days and your best friend, it's not a right. That's why there could never be a right to polite conversation.
Right.
If there's a right to free speech, it has to protect the most disgusting, vulgar, Nickelback and like
Nickelback and anime fight.
Nickelback, anime, and what's another horrifying thing? The Young Turks, Armed Scholar. They all have to be protected for it to be a right. If the First Amendment didn't protect lying, there would not be many gun tubers. Okay. So anyway, that's super important, guys. You don't have to love illegals and want open borders to recognize that the government can't just strip anyone of their guns that they want. You can hold both positions and be ideologically consistent. However, I will point out that the arguments against hardware, like gun bans, are the exact same logical fallacies that people argue in the immigration context.
Yes, exact same. In fact, it's shockingly similar.
It's literally like, so in formal logic, you can reduce points to an algebraic equation. It's indiscernible.
Yes.
Like, it's the exact same argument. It's, okay, well, these are inherently dangerous. That's where you start with, right? And so, the AR-15 and the it's inherently dangerous. And you're like, okay, well, but most of the time, right, that doesn't happen, right? Most people who own AR-15s,
right? If most of the illegal immigrants were actually violent, if they're actually armed invaders, I think you'd know it.
Yeah. And then they go, okay, well, if you, right, why would you want even one, right? Because if there's a bowl of M&Ms and 3 are poisoned, right? That was a famous argument that was made, I think, on like Tucker Carlson or something. Would you reach in and eat those M&Ms? It's the same thing. Well, it's like, if only 3 ARs are used in these crimes, why wouldn't it's always the same thing. So just, that's a point of reflection, but I'm not going to say that you can't, like, especially people who live on the border. I've heard some like horrible things that I'm sure are very true. I happen to live in a state that, according to the federal government, is only a border. So I've also seen some horrifying things, but I'm not sure how much of it had to do with immigration, much less that native Floridians are scary. But so that's all as to the how and why, right? I think what's most important though here is
the people.
You do not want the result of this case to be that someone can be considered beyond the scope of the Second Amendment because they committed a nonviolent crime.
Yes.
You don't want that.
It's really bad.
It's really bad. If we can say, so the reason we need the Second Amendment to protect illegal aliens is because we need that breadth of protection that's afforded in the First Amendment context, the Fourth Amendment context, and other constitutional contexts that use the same words. If all of a sudden people starts meaning some little subset, and God forbid it means law-abiding.
Yeah, it means law-abiding and citizen.
Law-abiding citizen.
I don't think you want that. I think you should.
What does that mean if you break a gun law?
I think you should pause and think very carefully and considerately about what that means whenever you're like, come and take it. You'll never get mine. I'm not going to register it. So not registering it suddenly means that you're a felon.
Right.
And you're going to jail.
Yeah.
And you have no Second Amendment rights with which to defend yourself.
Right.
And you volunteered for this.
Yeah. You said.
You said it.
That right is for law-abiding citizens, and we've long understood, right, that felons have a different set of rights than citizens, and that's why their voting privileges can be suspended. But this is not the road you want to go down.
It's not. It's really not good.
Especially when everything in gun law is through the criminal codes.
Yes.
And also look at the intense over-criminalization of this country. If you want to talk about law abiding, you need to read that book, 3 Felonies a Day. You have probably committed a felony within the last 3 hours without knowing it. It's bad. You don't want these things to be the result. And that's the thing that I'm really going to stand on. I'll come out and say it. My mom came here when there were open borders. It was pretty cool. I think I'm glad that she was able to do that. And I also don't think it was that bad back then. We had open borders until the 50s.
A lot of people point to the 40s and 50s as being like the golden age of this country. And that was a nuclear family, and America's just the bestest and greatest. And to some extent, I don't disagree from a standpoint of the stage of world power. The United States was doing some pretty cool stuff with technology and science and these sorts of things. You could just come here, like with very, very limited exceptions. It's like there was some racist stuff that still went on into the late 50s, early 60s. But by that point, they were like, by that point, they were like, okay, fine, we'll stop being racist. And for the most part, you could just come here,
right?
And there were still some number-based quotas, but the number-based quotas were, outpaced the number of people who wanted to be here as compared to today's sort of number-based system, which is like you can't. It's like a lottery, and your chances of winning are non-existent. It's an actual lottery.
Yeah, and for some people, the estimated time to entry is 110 years.
Right, which is you won't be here.
So and look, that's not to say, what I'm not necessarily making arguments for. Okay, I'm not right now arguing for a change in our immigration system. I'm also going to say this, right? Since everybody now knows that I'm, this open borders person, I'll do the thing that many libertarians refuse to do. And I'll also say that open borders will not work unless we fix our shit to where there isn't perverse incentives for people to come here and suck up benefits.
Right.
I'll also make another even more interesting point, is that if we can't get rid of all the benefits, then what we should probably do is keep our immigration laws and just not enforce them. Because what winds up happening, if you actually look at the data, is that they come in and need to get social security numbers for jobs. So they'll like be paying taxes on a dead person's social security and then not taking up any benefits because they're scared of being detected. So they wind up in and again, this isn't a legal argument. I'm just saying they do wind up contributing to the tax bases wherever they
anytime that they have a job that's like not under the table, that's how it works.
That is how it works. And I've been involved in some research that determined that they were actually like on net contributing, which was, I thought that was very funny. So from a like mathematical standpoint, that might be the best option, right? If you just let them come in, but it's still illegal and right, and make them pay taxes. But
I think we did that with the Irish. Yeah, isn't that just indentured servitude? Hang on.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all very cynical. And I've gone on for quite some time, but you can hold different opinions at the same time.
Right.
I'm a gun rights absolutist. Sorry.
That means what it says.
Yeah,
gun rights absolutist doesn't mean, but these guys are brown and I don't like them.
And also, okay, the other thread is these are armed invaders. Like representatives of another country. They're invaders.
Yes. Military-aged male invaders.
Yeah, okay, so I think that's a different thing. I think that the government totally can disarm.
Yes. The government has, in fact, right, you do your text history and tradition, your how and why, they can disarm people who are hostile to the United States, that are violent, that have said we're here to kill people.
And also people that are here like under foreign color, right?
Right. But, if you're here as a mercenary of a foreign government, certainly.
Yeah. But something tells me Carbajal Flores, in his low-income apartment in Chicago, probably wasn't harboring like intense patriotism for the country he fled.
Yeah, he loved the country so much that he left to go try and find Chicago. A life. He gave up everything to go to Chicago
because it was better there. No, that's not what this is. And can that happen? Absolutely. And in the current state of the law, is there a risk that if we immediately went to completely unmonitored open borders and whatever, is there a risk that something like that could happen? Yes. And so you can hold that fear and it's not insane. And so you can say, I still want them to be deported, even though like this and that, I still want a 1,000,000-foot tall wall, right? And that's not an insane position. What is insane is to say, no, they're not part of the people because they did not go through an impossible administrative process, right? Because if that is the result, it means that a permit to purchase, which I think is in every respect unconstitutional, that is based on a lottery, would be okay, because that is a procedural impediment on the ability to have a firearm at all. And if you say that they're not the people, that's a problem. And one of the people who say, like, there were people on Twitter who are actually saying the Second Amendment says citizen.
It doesn't. Try reading, idiot.
It conspicuously does not. In fact, they use the term citizen 11 times, and they're very careful about using it because guess what? It didn't matter.
Right.
People weren't citizens.
They knew the difference in these terms, and they were expressing something very specific to citizens, because federal United States citizens at the time of the founding was a wildly different concept than we have come to understand it today.
Well, you know what else? At the time of the founding, it didn't exist. Right. There was no such thing as a United States citizen until 2 years later, where you could go to any court and petition to be named a citizen, right? There was some race stuff, right? But, you know, baby bathwater, that whole thing. But you know what the prerequisites were? Broadly, were you chilling here for 2 years at least?
Yep. you had to be like white and male and chilling here for 2 years.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people who then weren't white and weren't male and did have guns. And unless you're going to take the shocking position that all of those people could have had their gun rights just utterly eviscerated, you have to
make it more clear. People who weren't freeholders, right? So people who would share crop and stuff like that, you know, the majority of people, what would have back then been the middle class, they weren't citizens.
No, they were not.
They couldn't vote predominantly. They had guns. And in fact, the law required their armament.
They were the ones who went and won the war.
Yeah.
It's shocking to then read that they didn't have gun rights.
The militia acts did not say citizen either. They said able-bodied male in this territory. What do you think they meant by that?
Why didn't they say citizen?
Well, clearly no, they meant citizen, right? Because no. Anyway,
there's more analysis on what people means, and sort of, as I was digging more into this, because to me it's sort of fascinating, because and I guess it may be a little bit of the contrarian in me, but between, if we look at, just as an anecdote, the dangerous and unusual test, right? I think that the dangerous is much more interesting than the unusual part of it, because no court has like really talked about it, except they're like, oh, it's a gun, it's dangerous. Yeah. I think that's stupid, because they're talking about weapons. All weapons are dangerous. That's their job. Dangerous compared to what? Nobody's got answers for that. I think it would be cool to see fleshed out. Much the same way, in the right of the people to keep and bear arms, I think arms isn't nearly as interesting as people, because we have answers on arms, even though lower courts, I mean, we'll have plenty more commentary on that. Yeah. Lower courts have a great ability to stick their fingers in there and be like, we don't know what that means. So I find, the people to be sort of the more interesting arm of the people to keep and bear arms, just because it turns out it's really, really not talked about. There's sort of 3 times that the Supreme Court has really touched on what they might think it means. The first time is a little known court case that you may think is cool, but I don't. It was Dred Scott.
Yeah.
In Dred Scott, the majority opinion held that the people and citizen, totally co-equal term. It's always the exact same. Every time it says the people, what they actually meant was citizen.
Right.
This was motivated reasoning specifically to deny African Americans' rights. That is the only possible way to read it.
Yeah, and it literally says so in the concurrence. If we didn't say that, they'd be able to have guns.
Right. And so for those of you who are scholars of American history, you may know that there was a kerfuffle, and this court opinion, while not the whole reason that the kerfuffle happened, was a motivating factor, because it rubbed a lot of, like, no one was happy with the way that actually went.
Right.
And so a thing happened, and then after that thing,
there was a 13th war of northern aggression.
There was a 13th and 14th Amendment that happened.
Yeah.
And that 14th Amendment very clearly said, like, I mean, it didn't come right out and say it, right? But the language of the 14th Amendment makes it clear that citizens and people and persons residing in the country are 3 things, right? It's 3 concepts, and it used those terms specifically, deliberately, and not interchangeably.
Right.
Which should key you into the fact that Dred Scott wasn't good law, ever. And so the court then doesn't touch on it again till like way, way later. And it's a case that's known as Verdugo. I don't know how to pronounce this, fine. But in American it's pronounced Verdugo Urquidez, something like that, which was in 1990. And that's a Supreme Court case where, very puzzlingly, or perhaps interestingly, there was a Mexican national who was suspected of being a drug dealer. who was caught in the United States, arrested, and then they went to his residence in Mexico, raided it to try and get evidence. His lawyer tried to suppress that evidence because there wasn't a warrant for it, and then that motion went up the chain until the Supreme Court decided that the federal government does not need to get a warrant for a Mexican national's property in Mexico after he was arrested for illegal conduct in the United States.
Well, and they specified that he had no voluntary connection.
Correct.
So it wasn't just that he was a Mexican, and it wasn't just that it was in Mexico. It was that it was done, and he has no voluntary connection to the United States. So that stands for the proposition that you may get Fourth Amendment protection, right, if it's your second home or something, right?
Right. And so, in sort of an unusual situation, the Supreme Court should have just answered the question then, right, and should have stopped there, or at least they had the option to stop there. However, they went on to say that, in the Fourth Amendment, the people, which is a term that shows up, they identified other places in the Bill of Rights, refers to, their quote is, persons who are a part of a national community or who have substantial connections to the United States. And that's where the voluntary connection came from, was right. Like, if you're not, like if you don't actually choose to be here except for whenever you're doing something illegal, you don't have a substantial connection to the United States. Where I think you could see where in this latest opinion, the reason for all the debate now, he very much had a substantial connection to the United States. He'd lived here. He has like an actual house here. He's got a job and he bought a gun here. I feel like if you've been here for long enough to get a gun, I feel like that should at least say something, right? It should speak to something. He's a part of a national community. He lives in Chicago and has an illegal gun. All right.
Yeah. It's just like everyone else.
He's literally one of them at this point.
Yeah.
And so, specifically the touchstone in the case they noticed for persons, they identified for persons, wasn't citizenship, right? They didn't say he doesn't have Fourth Amendment rights because he's not a citizen.
Connection. And I think that's reasonable, right?
The third and most recent time that the Supreme Court talked about what the people could possibly mean, interestingly, was in Heller. Heller's a fascinating opinion. And the more you dig into it, I think the more you start to see like why some criticisms of it exist, because they packed a lot of shit into Heller. And I think they kind of had to.
Intentionally.
I don't think it was intentional. And I think to some extent, though, they had to, because this is really the first time that they were getting into gun rights. And they probably should have taken a gun case sooner and said, like, hey, you dumb idiots, it's an individual right. How would a collective right work? Like the whole collective right theory is just there because like the whole collective right theory only exists because they're like, no, please, it's not an individual right. Stop. That means we can't shit on people for wanting to own guns. So it's very interesting. And so Heller went on to say that the Verdugo Urquidez, I'm sorry, they went on to say that is clearly good law. We agree with that. And that they had then said that the people means the same thing consistently across. Well, everywhere that it shows up in the amendments in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, it means the same thing. However, they didn't say if what they were saying there was it's always the same group of people, or they're saying it's always an individual right. It's always somebody's individual right. I think it's the latter, because that was the reasoning. That was the whole reason they were doing Heller, right? Is they're saying, yeah, it's an individual right. How the fuck wouldn't it be? So there's confusion built in there, because some courts have read that to be the Supreme Court saying the people that shows up in the Second Amendment is the same as the one that shows up in the Fourth Amendment. And these are all the same groups of people, and only the same groups of people could be involved. I don't know that that's necessarily correct, because dangerous people who are barred from having guns aren't necessarily denied Fourth Amendment rights. They aren't necessarily denied First Amendment rights. So I don't know that you can arrive at a conclusion where...
Well, wait. Okay, hold on. A restriction on a dangerous person doesn't have to comport with the wording of the Second Amendment. It has, and that's why they do text history and tradition. It's not as if they're squaring prohibitions on dangerous people with the wording of the Second Amendment. They're squaring prohibitions on dangerous people.
They're saying they're a person because they're a person.
Right, but they're squaring it with this, how the right was understood at the time of the founding, right?
The tradition of regulation.
Right, exactly. So so I do think you don't stop being a part of the people right?
Just because you're a violent. I
Just
guess
because you're violent.
The same way you don't stop being a gun if you're, for example, dangerous and unusual.
Right.
You don't stop being an arm.
Yeah. So that, and the only reason that you would need to say, oh no, it's a different people, right? Dangerous people aren't part of the people, is if you are like making that category error and saying that, no, if you can be disarmed, it means you're not part of the people. That's not what Brewing says. What Brewing says is, does the regulation fall under the unqualified command of the Second Amendment? So it's saying, is it a restriction on the right of the people to keep and bear arms? So it's like, that automatically means if we're doing a Brewing analysis at the second step, that it is a restriction on a part of the people.
Right.
If it's not part of the people, you don't go further. You're done. Right.
So considering that, I think there is probably a way that it could be both, right? It could be, yes, the people is always the same group of people. And yes, they're specifically saying it's because it's an individual right that's being conveyed in each and every time that it shows up.
So I think that the national community thing made perfect sense. But then these lower courts that have held against illegal immigrants using the Heller quote,
right? Because
political community.
Heller said political community, and it said
it out of nowhere,
right?
And you know why they said it? It's
not like it said it would. It doesn't explain why it's political community instead of national community, and so it's like they're like, Verdugo's good law, and now here we're going to use a different word, which is confusing. And I guess there's multiple ways you could interpret that.
I think here's what I think happened. Again, the context of invoking Verdugo is encountering this retarded proposition that it's a collective right.
Right.
And they're saying, you guys are so stupid by suggesting that. Look at every other time we've looked at the people, and we've held it to be so broad that the only way out of it is to literally have no voluntary connection, right? Outside of the country, right? You're a national of that country, and you don't want to be here. You're here because we caught you, right? He's like, look, and so then they said, unambiguously refers to every member, right? And so that remember going to the individual of the political community. And that may have been just Scalia not wanting to use the word national community or something. I don't know. It could have been a flourish, or it just could have been an inherent imprecision of the English language. But there's no way that by pointing to Verdugo, he's narrowing the scope of the people. It wouldn't make sense.
In there have been some courts that did take that view, which I think is a very dim view, who have said that being a member of the political community means that, oh, that's people who can vote. I think that's an insane way to look at that. Because if you're a victim of American politics, I think you're a member of the political community. There's plenty of victims of the American political system who are not able to vote, or who plain old don't vote, right? I think it's a bizarre reading to think that, like, if you don't vote and you're going to say that political community means that you're a voter, you're engaged in your local elections or whatever, and if you don't vote, you don't have rights. That's crazy. If you're not registered to vote, if you think the draft is a piece of shit, and if you're a male, you think the draft's a stupid piece of shit, and you didn't register for the draft, you can't vote. Are you now not a member of the national community? I think that's startling. I think that'd be a startling way to read that, is that everybody who didn't sign up for the draft instantly loses Second Amendment rights. That's bizarre.
And you can avoid this whole parade. You can avoid this whole parade and still hate immigrants.
Yes, you can hate them. Sure, go ahead.
If you just say if we just agree, everyone inside this country is protected by the Bill of Rights.
Right. And that the people that in most circumstances, there's going to be outliers, and I'm sure.
Well, that doesn't mean that they're protected. They can do things to earn the loss of that protection, right? But if you just like the smartest thing for us to all do is sit here and agree that this is the scope. It's every individual here. Certain individuals can lose the right of their own conduct, right? They have to earn that. But let's not quibble about whether or not people means, means everyone. We are in the best position if we agree that it means everyone. And then you can hold the independent position that people who violate certain laws should be loaded into a cannon and shot at the sun.
I think people who are Californian should be shot into the sun.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think that I am about to show my power level too much if I keep talking. So I need to stop.
And so I think the Verdugo test is workable if they would define national community and substantial connections to be something sane, where it's like they're here voluntarily and they're not like just like setting bags of shit on fire on people's porches and generally being uncool.
Yeah. I would say, like, you know, membership in any community organization, or like, you know, being a part of a church, renting a place, having an address, you know, those
doing
are all
some amount of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Producing value. Or we can go Lockean. Have you mixed your labor with the land?
I think it demonstrates that you're a member of your national community, right? And that
you have to prove you have one friend. We're fucked.
You have to prove one friend, right? You know, we had joked about earlier that I know some people had tried to point to like, oh, they have to pass a civics test or whatever. Like on a case-by-case basis, maybe you could try and make that the test, but I think the thing you arrive at is most natural-born citizens can't pass a civics test. It would be really, really hard for them to do.
No, and so like, look, this is absent any consideration about immigrants or whatever, but I will tell you, the most dangerous motherfuckers in this country
were born here.
Have you been in the Appalachians at a gas station late at night? Those are different people. They are different. I'm sorry. And I know I've got a lot of friends and viewers up in Pennsylvania, and they'll probably agree with me. Those are the dangerous people.
The Wendigo is just them.
Yeah. I mean, hell, have you been to Miami, 2 blocks from South Beach? Those are dangerous people. They're different. They were born here, man. There's a lot of inbred motherfuckers in this country for real, and that's also the government's fault. My wife is looking at me like with those eyes saying, "Matt, stop alienating him." What, Sam? I'm not saying that. But yeah, anyway, so that's, look, I just hope that if you like lost respect for me for any of this, that's okay. But I hope it was because I disagree with you on a separate point, or I might disagree with you on a separate point, and not because we're disagreeing about the scope of the Second Amendment, right? I might not respect you because you carry a SIG or something, but we can still be allies in the Second Amendment context, I think. And so I don't know. What do you think?
I concur with that sentiment. It's, I guess, to sort of loop in the last point I wanted to make, a lot of people pointed to this as like the judge is trying to strike back at Brewin as being like, take that, conservatards, boom. Or that they're laying a trap that conservatards will step in. They'll have to step in because they either say the Second Amendment's got limits, the Second Amendment's got lemons, there's a lemon on the Second Amendment, or they'll have to say that we love illegals, and they're not going to do either of them. I don't think that's true. I think the judge did a pretty faithful, like, I know a lot of people pointed to like this judge has upheld, this judge being over Chicago, right, has upheld machine gun convictions and these sorts of things,
right? And
so certainly this judge isn't like our best buddy or anything, but I think the reasoning that this judge made in this case was pretty good. I don't think that they were laying any sort of trap. I think this was probably a good faith interpretation of Brewin. It's not like this was reasoned so poorly that it's like you didn't read Brewin. I think it was reasoned pretty well.
Let's be fair. She may have felt some degree of catharsis as she wrote it, right? But
I think she went through the how and the why, and I think her reasoning in the how and why is a lot better than what the government was alleging she should have done. I don't think this guy, especially not on an as applied basis, is like a British loyalist who says that he wants to kill George Washington.
Yeah. I don't kill George Washington and reinstate the king.
I don't see that here. So I think that sort of like heartache where it's like, oh, but if you accept this, then the progressives win. I don't think that's true. I think that you can just look at this and be happy with the fact that, you know, even if even if you refuse to do any, how bad could this get for us if they rule that immigrants can't have guns? Even if you refuse to do that analysis, because you don't think it would matter. Newsflash, it would absolutely matter. It would matter massively. It would matter in assault weapons ban in magazine cases.
Right.
And if you don't think it would, you're kind of stupid. You don't pay enough attention. Not stupid. You just don't pay enough attention to this awful stuff. We're stupid for paying attention to this awful stuff.
Yeah,
but
it hurts.
Even if you refuse to entertain that, at the very least, you should look at this as assuming you're Second Amendment absolutist, right? That at the margins, it's kind of important to see what are the actual limits. And I think that if you read through this opinion and you come to the conclusion that it's poorly reasoned, I would be curious to hear what you think better reasoning would have been. If you were the judge, what does your Brewing analysis tell you? Does your Brewing analysis tell you that this guy is just like somebody who wants to kill George Washington? That's interesting. I'm not sure where you got that, but cool. Yeah. Fine.
I would love to hear it. And I've engaged with many people about this, and I don't want to sound. I've convinced a lot of people by just being disconnected about it and saying, look, these are two different issues. You're okay. You're okay to hold that opinion, and it's true, but you have to engage with them one by one. And, and that was actually, it was a conversation I had with somebody earlier that was like, well, and again, he's like, he tells me I'm a libertarian, like I'm an ideological libertarian, like it's some kind of insult. You libertarians can't admit that open borders won't work in our current system. I'm like, you know what? That's absolutely true. That's like 100% true, right? And so I was like, I'll give you that.
Yes, the same, like a structural defects in liberal policy that have ruined most of the cities are like a very clear sign that just having an open border with the current systems of benefits and the current incentives for being unproductive in the country
going full
work.
Circle, the bizarre incentives that are set by our nanny state are the reason Carbajal Flores needs a handgun.
Yes, it's very interesting in that regard,
right? Like he totally needs one. It'd be like, but I was like, just to put a cap on this, Costas, the guy we did the dueling pieces in the reload, we had a great time. He and I are friends. And my favorite part of this is when you look at both of our names doing this, we're both first generation Americans. We're both the children of immigrants. And the comments that like caught on to that were so good. And it was really funny because Costas replied, he's like, I don't know why you won't help me pull this ladder up, bro. We're done with it. But yeah, one guy was like, damn it, Costas. How could a Greek allow me to side with the French on such an issue? So it was good. It was all a lot of fun. And you know what? If you totally hate me now, fucking whatever, dude.
You probably carry a cig, weirdo.
Yeah, you
probably don't drop it, dickhead.
Yeah, whatever, loser.
It'll be interesting to see this case, how it continues to go. I'm sure the government will appeal because they've been appealing a lot of this 922 stuff anyway.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll appeal this.
I think this might be one they don't want to fuck with, but we'll see.
Maybe. They might be comfortable at least until they see what Rahimi says, because Rahimi's also going to deal with this dangerous an
Rahimi's going to be very important,
right?
So how these cases go forward.
They may just slow roll it for now, but it'll be interesting to see if and or when, right? Because Rahimi's a case where we'll at least have some insight given to what the people means and what people can then be disarmed. Mm-hmm. So I have to imagine the people will be defined better in Rahimi. Hopefully we don't just get more of this.
I don't think it has to. Maybe it will.
I don't think it has to, but I have some faith that they'll at least touch on it, because there is a little bit of ambiguity. Well, more than a little bit. There's like the closest they come is national community or political community. What the fuck does that mean?
They only have to touch that though if they're breaching the question of the people, which they don't have to under Brewing. They can presuppose it's the people and then still engage in a historical analog analysis.
They certainly don't have to. I agree with you. However,
because remember, we only touch historical analogs when it breaches the unqualified command of the Second Amendment.
Right. I just wonder if they'll if they'll have the foresight to see, like, yeah, currently this isn't fleshed out. Like arms is not unclear, right? Arms.
Bro, have you seen the cases that they've put forth in the Second Amendment context? They don't want to flesh out anything that isn't precisely before them.
I suppose that's also true. Of course,
okay, I will say this: if they do that, if they like go beyond the sheer question of
dangerous as an analog,
yeah, I don't know. What do you want me to do? I'll do something. I'll buy a SIG. I'll buy one brand new.
Damn.
At a retail.
You have to get the X5 Legion or some shit.
I ain't going that far. but I'll buy a SIG. All right, how about that? All right. Speaking of which, let's talk about two companies that aren't that. This is really funny. And also, I love Ruger now. It's FN is suing Ruger over the SFAR, claiming that it infringes on the SCAR trademark.
It's a really interesting lawsuit. The initial brief is pretty small. It's essentially FN's lawyers making the claim that the name similar on Ruger's past guns, they've called it the Ruger 1022, the Ruger Mini 14, the Ruger Mini 30, and this one they just call it the SFAR. And they're saying that change is a clear sign that Ruger's trying to confuse the consumers. And of course, this being like a trade dress sort of lawsuit, it being a trade dress lawsuit is the reason they do this. But in the lawsuit, they say that the SFAR is nearly identical to the SCAR in performance and weight and handling and its characteristics and performance. Yeah. And I just thought that was the funniest shit because taken out of that trade dress context, it is hilarious to see FN say that this Ruger cheapo, like a third the price, quarter the price gun is just as good. Yeah. Like FN's arguing the cheap gun is just as good.
Oh my God. That's it. Yeah. Oh, look, they just said SFAR. But here's the thing, like, when you're dealing with, so trademark trade dress is a species of consumer protection. It's not really a rights thing, right? It's not your normal ownership of a right thing. Trademark infringement is to protect consumers from bogus goods, from false designation of origin. So it's designed to prevent confusion. The lawsuit doesn't allege any actual confusion, right? And evidence of actual confusion is really important. I don't think anyone would look at that and say, that's the chocolate French gun.
Yeah, that's the SCAR. That's the SCAR from Call of Duty, and I can buy it for a quarter price.
That's the same gun as the one the chocolate people make.
Especially considering, I guess for audio listeners or people unaware, the SFAR is Ruger's AR-10. It's an AR-10-ish. So it's an AR-10 that uses only AR-15 parts on the internal. So it's AR-15 buffer, AR-15 spring, AR-15 fire control groups, AR-15 takedown pins, etc. AR-15 magazine catch even. So which is great. Right. It's Ruger trying to standardize on AR-15 parts in a 308 large frame gun, which is smart.
It's Ruger saying, hey, how about we forget about this Knights versus DPMS thing and let's just do AR-15.
Right. It's probably the smart way to do that because I guess it's a nerdy anecdote. Knights is more or less based on the Armalite original AR-10 design. Right. Only there's like 5 of those. Yeah. Armalite didn't do a good job of consolidating stuff on the AR-10. Nobody did. No. And so Knights is roughly based on that. The current production Armalite, the Eagle Arms Armalite guns are also based on that roughly. And then DPMS was based on scaling AR-15 back up to 308. But confusingly using random sizes for takedown pins where they're all nominally the same size, but they have like a 5 thou variant. So sometimes you get takedown pins that won't fit on some guns. Sometimes they'll have a ton of rattle. It was horribly inconsistent.
Yeah, so they're bizarrely different.
What Ruger's here is doing something smart, which is moving it to a 1/4 inch takedown pin like the AR-15s have, because you don't need like a 9/32 or whatever pin for a 308. There's very, very little stress seen by those pins. It's fine to use. In fact, people run 500 or 50 Beowulf uppers and AR-15s, which in terms of how beat up the pins are going to get is going to be more than a 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. So that's what the SFAR is essentially. You can think of it as an AR-10. It's fine to think of it that way. The SCAR is the SCAR. It's a completely different gun. Side by side, they're not even that similar.
there is just like, it is not confusing. So
Yes.
I do wonder where this case will go. I think it would be odd for FN to prevail. I predict that the result will be an out-of-court settlement, which is just, I think probably what will happen is Ruger will be like, this is annoying. We'll like do a small text, it says, we'll only call it the Ruger spar now. How about that? Are you happy?
And I guess the other weird thing, not necessarily weird, but funny thing that people pointed out is that what Ruger should do is go to the court and be like, Your Honor, nobody could have possibly confused these guns. If somebody uses a suppressor on our gun and something breaks, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Or if we deem it not our fault, we'll sell you the part to fix it. FN, will you do that? Because no, FN will not. FN will not even sell you a bolt carrier for your SCAR if it cracks because you put a suppressor on it and the gun is like on the ragged edge of even working in the first place. And so I'm Team Ruger on this one. FN can stay getting fucked.
Big. It's a team sports. I'm on teamvzgrips.com, guys, and I'm also on team promotional code this week 15. That's THISWEEK15. I've seen a bunch of you guys using this code, and I just want to let you know that is big. And look, they got a new grip. It's for the Sharps Bros 365X grip module. That's a handsome little Doug right there. It's a nice little bugless. You can get it in the slant. That is not racist. It's a VZ Grips exclusive grip pattern. Is available in yellow and blue colors.
You can say, give me that slant gun and it's not racist.
Yeah, cool. Give me that yellow slant gun. The Sharps Bros model, please. Yeah, you won't be racist at all. But check it out. And look, the inserts for those Sharps Bros grip things are only $40. And if you use promotional code this week 15, THISWEEK15, you're going to get 15% off of that. That's absurd. Why would you not go? It's a Florida company. Go there and give them some of your money and then give me the rest. All right. That's vzgrips.com. Thank you so much to VZ Grips for supporting me and my bad habits. Oh, and also Ivan. Support him too.
Yeah. Because I can't stop buying auto fives.
I give him some of the money.
I really can't stop buying auto fives. I've got a problem.
Oh. Did you notice my shirt?
Oh, nice.
It says rat. Yeah.
Whoa, rat pack.
Yeah, rat pack. All right, this one is so funny. This is also funny. This is a God. I remember I saw this guy, Mr. Frost, when I was at Congress, and he was such a weak little bitch.
Yep.
He gave his little talk, and then he like smashed his hand on the table, and then him and all of the like Moms Demand people left the hearing, which I thought was so bizarre. But anyway, he, a disgraced Floridian, is he's focused on closing the loophole on zombie guns.
Which is, it's a whole new thing.
Yeah, it's enabled a dangerous secondary gun market. And this is secondary to the secondary gun market. So I believe it may be a tertiary gun market?
Tertiary gun market. We're breaking new.
Yeah, so you guys might be wondering, as any reasonable person would, what the hell is he talking about? He's talking about parts kits.
He's essentially talking about how there's sort of three ways a zombie gun becomes a zombie gun or whatever. Whenever police departments are done with guns, sometimes they just straight up sell the guns, right? They give the guns to a wholesaler, and the wholesaler just sells the guns on. Some police departments, some jurisdictions, some police department policies, some jurisdictional laws say that police departments can't sell guns. However, they could give the guns to a company that destroys the frame or receiver and sells the rest of parts as spare parts for repair, for modification. I've seen it done a lot of times with guns that are 9 and 40 because cops can't pick which one's actually better.
Yeah.
That you can then get the 40 slide and parts for your 9mm gun or vice versa. And then you can have a Glock in both calibers for like a quarter of the price. Super cool. So that's one place the parts come from. Sort of the second one they come from is police seize your guns. So when police seize guns, their evidence rooms end up getting full. And it turns out they don't need to hold on to these evidence guns. And if the person gets convicted of a big, bad, no good, they can't get their gun back. The police can do asset forfeiture stuff with these guns sometimes, but again, there's policies and laws that sort of control how they do that. So a lot of the times they just have to have the guns destroyed. So they'll go and contact a company that does gun destruction. The company will destroy the frame or receiver, and then these extra parts they'll sell for repair or other purposes. And then finally, guns that show up at buybacks will have the same thing happen.
And this is what you wind up with.
Right.
This was purchased from one of those zomboid companies. It's this is most of a Apache Arms Model 45, which I bought these parts because I was like, haha, what is that? And now I know.
And so, these parts are legitimately used for repair, but sometimes they're used for completion of, you make your own new frame or receiver and you put the stupid gun together. Mm-hmm. It's kind of cool. And frequently really oddball stuff will show up at these things. Like really oddball stuff sometimes.
Like the Apache Arms Model 45.
In fact, a very relevant example. And so it sort of also gives you an opportunity to find guns that are rare or otherwise scarce, or even in fact, like unknown to most people, and then find a way to have these guns and potentially any historical value associated with them carried on. I think that's cool and good. However,
yeah, like we found, what was it, that Chinese squeeze cocker?
Yes. The weirdest, like the weirdest little gun imaginable.
Yeah.
And so anti-gunners have now latched on to this, and it's part of their whole outrage over, similarly maligned ghost guns. So the jokes on Twitter have been, we're waiting for Dracula guns and mummy guns to come on to the scene. Personally, I
call paracord rat for the mummy guns.
I can't wait for my 3011 to become the Frankenstein gun officially, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
So it's being maligned because it lets the whole zombie gun, because like they're dead and then they're alive again, I guess is the joke. And the whole reason they're being maligned is because it lets the felon mental wife beater abuse the immigrant get the gun. No good.
Listen. The zombie gun loophole is not just a technicality. It's a glaring vulnerability that is fanning the flames of the gun violence epidemic. Far too many firearms re-enter circulation through this deceptive practice, creating a secondary gun market that leads to more guns ending up in the hands of those responsible for gun violence. March for Our Lives is pleased to support the Destroy Zombie Guns Act to close this deadly loophole.
Right.
As a mom raising 2 teenage boys, I never thought I'd be afraid to send them to school. But I've met one too many parents who kissed their kids goodbye, thinking they were safe. Guns in the hands of people who should never have them took their most precious loved ones away. It's why I'll fight to break the cycle of zombie guns to help.
That's a whole different sentence.
This is, rise in gun violence has been fueled by the guns flooding our streets that do not belong there. That's why most of the guns are these violent guns, the zombie guns, right?
Yeah.
Companies are contributing to this issue that to only destroy one part of the weapon and resell the remaining gun components as a parts kit. It does not take 28 days or a mutated virus for these parts to infect our communities as a new weapon. I am proud to co-lead the Destroy Zombie Guns Act with Congressman Maxwell Frost to require the destruction of the whole gun, not just one part. We must do everything possible to end the prevalence of gun violence in our communities.
And I assume the bill text isn't available yet. I assume what it would end up being is like a restraint on companies that offer gun destruction services, and it would specifically require them to make sure every part is rendered inoperable and not just the frame or receiver. The interesting thing, though, is the whole reason, for you guys unaware, the whole reason this thing is this is all happening is because anti-gun group, I think it was Everytown, got caught wind of the fact that this sort of happens. And the strange thing is it's their anti-gun laws that allow this to happen, right? It's their laws, their chosen preference and laws
to happen, really.
Right, that forced this to happen, that forced it to be this way, right? And so they're now upset with the laws that they demanded they have to end the gun violence because their laws are now making more gun violence, but they won't of course, won't let you know that, because why would they? But these companies that offer these gun destruction services do it at no cost to the police or to the NGOs that do gun buybacks or these sorts of things. They destroy the guns for free in their gun destruction machines. They're gun eaters, if you will.
Yeah, the gun
eaters. They then make, because this company does have to make money. It's not like they're federally subsidized. They have to make their money somehow, and they do it by selling the parts. These companies also offer whole gun destruction services, but they would be silly to not make it worth their while in terms of what they would make if they were just selling parts.
So they charge to use the gun eater if you want to eat the whole gun.
Right. And so and then of course that also makes sense, right? Especially with more and more guns having polymer frames and receivers and steel slides. Your gun eater won't last forever. Things will eventually wear out and break. It does put more wear and tear on their machineries. I'm sure a justifiable excuse that they would have. And so it'll be interesting to see. I imagine this doesn't go anywhere. It'll be interesting to see how the rhetoric around it evolves. It would be really cool. I really, really hope that we can have a House Judiciary committee on this. That would be really good. Just because I want to see the dumbass things that people come to say. That would be really funny. They should have you back out for that one.
I will. I don't think that the Republicans will ever bring me on again. All because I reached across the aisle, tried to make inroads with the other side.
I feel like Cori Bush must have been over there going like, hell yeah, brother. One struggle. But
she did seem like she was actually kind of nice to me. Yeah, like none of them like gave me bad looks, but whatever.
I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes, which will probably be nowhere. It's just the latest anti-gun struggle bus stupid thing. And of course, I guess it is another example of, right, it's the death by a million cuts, where they can always find some way to fuck with your Second Amendment rights, and at the quickest it will take you 1 year to claw them back. Maybe you can claw them back, and maybe it'll take a year, usually longer. And it's just sort of fucked up.
I hate the government. Oh, is that I can be disarmed now because I'm just like a loyalist.
You're just like a loyalist.
Yep. Anyway, let's move on. The worst shit. Delaware permit to purchase handgun bill was passed by lawmakers, and the governor is going to give it the old signorino. Anyone looking to buy a handgun in Delaware could soon face a multi-step process. On Thursday, the Delaware Senate passed a bill outlining permit to purchase regulations for residents who want to buy handguns. Governor John Carney has said he will sign the bill into law as soon as it gets to his desk. Now, listen. When the bill was first introduced, at that time, the impetus we had seen, the statistics on all the terrible gun violence done with handguns, whether violence of suicide or violence of homicide, they would also have to, God, this is so busted. They would also have to have proof that they have taken training in the last 5 years that meets a certain standard that's outlined in the legislation that we passed. What do state lawmakers, are they like really that?
Yes.
What we've seen in the other states is that having a permitting scheme in place really reduces violent crime. So the use of handguns in those types of situations, and also in suicides.
Illinois is known as one of the Chicago, the shining jewel of no gun violence.
And no one has ever killed themselves.
No, that does not happen. And it's had like the longest running first handgun ban in the country. Woohoo, go us! And has had has also had the, I think it's the longest running, the longest currently standing permitting scheme that's a purchase to permit for, like, you can't have a gun without.
Yeah. I think that's horrible. I think permits to purchase they're like the most pernicious class of gun law, and you guys have heard me say that.
I think they're wildly fucked up. And again, for those of you who are going to try and pretend like the story we spent the first all of this episode talking about, if you're going to pretend that it has no bearing, I feel like you're in for a real shock whenever courts are asked to determine if permits and licenses and background checks are constitutional, because eventually they're going to have to answer the question, okay, well, if you say these people are prohibited, how are we supposed to check?
Yep.
This is how they check. Permits,
gotta check and make sure you're
requirements, waiting periods, all this stuff. All this stuff's going to stick around for us.
It takes time for us to figure out from the census.
Yes, of
whatever,
course.
The social
whatever
security board.
Whatever excuse that they've decided to concoct today. I guess
and if you don't have a social security number, like let's say you're a natural birth, we got to check. Sorry.
I guess of interest on this story, there were oral arguments for Maryland's handgun purchase permit today. Maryland had all of its cases go en banc. There's plenty of analysis I'm sure you guys have seen. Frankly, it's the most frustrating oral arguments. The three big cases: the handgun purchase license, their assault weapons ban, and the defaced serial number oral arguments. I listened to, I'd say 95% of all of these three combined. I listened to a lot of them. I was getting so incredibly mad listening to it that I was thinking I need to take my head I was mad.
I need to take my head off. Is that what you said?
I need to take my own head off.
Maybe we need to put those laws into place.
I take my headphones off. I was sick of listening to this. It was horrible. I don't recommend you go listen to it because it's that bad. Long story short is the Fourth Circuit, especially en banc, is probably the least gun-friendly circuit that you could put together. Of course, it's easy to say because there's a lot of them. Right. Fourth and Second and Ninth are really bad. The handgun purchase one, most relevant here. I feel like the fever pitch of the whole thing was Maryland shall issue's lawyer bringing up that the handgun license doesn't actually let you buy a handgun. The handgun permit does. In order to get a handgun permit, you have to get a handgun license. How many roadblocks could they put in front of this? And the judges on the panel kept wanting to say, so you're purely bringing an argument that it takes too much time, and you're only asking us to rule on, is there a time requirement? He's like,
oh my God.
No. Yeah. Is time an element? Yes. But they kept trying to corner, the judges were arguing for the state's lawyers, trying to corner him into, it's only about time. You're only asking about time, right? This is only about the amount of time, right? Because they're trying desperately to avoid the constitutional question of, can you permit and license? Or can you just do one? And then, of course, I think if the Constitution is going to allow you to check, you can check once. And it can't have an undue period or fine associated with it. I think that if Illinois is to have void cards, there shouldn't be 4473s in the entire state. I think that's the only constitutionally consistent way to apply that. Whether or not higher courts end up agreeing with that, we'll have to see. It'd be cool if they did, but I guess it'd be less burdensome in most instances if they did. I don't know that that's necessarily cool.
By the way, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The only group that I endorse is MSI. And I was actually on the phone with their president a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about this case, the HQL case. It is because I've got a case in the Fourth Circuit as well, and he was just muttering to himself about just how horrified he was about this. It was
the MSI lawyer fought tooth and nail. I think that he managed to convince none of the judges, because the judges weren't asking questions; the judges were making legal arguments and saying, fight this legal argument. And judges are allowed to be hostile and do that. Whenever it's 20 judges coming at him at once, all of them doing this with equally insane theories, I think he did a fantastic job of defending home plate in that point. I think he did a great job of it.
Oh no, they're the best. And especially just being used to, people who are Fourth Circuit litigators in the gun context have to be used to a bayonet in every corner, just poking constantly. But we'll see how it goes. We'll say some of the most important cases to come out in the Second Amendment that have really helped define the scope of the right in the correct direction came from the Fourth Circuit.
Yep.
Fourth Circuit is the first place where we really saw the right to purchase a firearm.
I think we talked about it before, but there's no such thing as bad pro-gun litigation, right? It doesn't, it's not wasted effort. It's not, everybody should just leave California.
There is such thing as bad
I guess whenever it becomes overly duplicative, right? When all of the groups file the same lawsuit in the same circuit, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But
and none of them proceeded actual Second Amendment claim.
Right, that's also not great. Whenever they,
I wonder why no one notices that.
Whenever they're more interested in a win,
in a pyrrhic victory,
or right, a win on the grounds that gun rights sort of is more concerned with. So I certainly grant you that point. Yeah. I guess for anybody interested, because I don't think we had separate stories for them. The assault weapons ban case went really bad.
The Fourth Circuit with the Virginia one.
There was Maryland's. The Bianchi.
Oh, okay. There was also there was another one. Yeah, Bianchi didn't go well.
It didn't go well at all. The same thing where the anti-gun judges were making all sorts of legal arguments and then asking the pro-gun lawyer to defend it. It was like strange how hostile they were in some cases.
Right.
There are one or two pro-gun voices in the assault weapons ban case that spoke up. Very refreshing to hear. One point that the reason I want to talk about it and reason I want to bring it up is at one point, an anti-gun judge who had prior military service asked the pro-gun lawyer, "Have you ever shot an M16?" The pro-gun lawyer says no. Mm-hmm. With the resources that big pro-gun groups have, with the sort of network that's been built of gun owners and litigants and litigators, there is no reason that the guy you send up for oral arguments should have zero experience with the sort of guns that are relevant to the discussion. And of course, people are going to say, "Oh, no, but they're talking about semi-automatic guns." M16s are still similar. They're going to be brought up for discussion. Just rip a mag or two through one. You can do this probably for
just
free.
How about be in some way connected to the community that you fucking stake your livelihood on, or that you extract your livelihood from working for.
And the point that was being made was extremely stupid by this anti-gun judge, because he went on to say that with the M16,
would have been dispensed with if the attorney had any connection to guns.
Right. If the attorney said yes, and even if he's going to spin a web where it's like yes, and it's extremely different than just semi-auto AR-15, I think that's wrong. But at least you'd be able to say yes.
The way you'd handle that is, you'd be like, I've also shot, plenty of other models. What's the distinction?
Right.
Right. And then if you say, like, is there a distinction you're looking to hone in on? Then you trip up the judge.
Right. And instead, the judge is able to blabber out something about, well, when he was in the army and they shoot the targets, there really wasn't anything left of the targets, and that the M16 is a machine gun and the recoil is extreme when you press the trigger. And it's
Your Honor, the M16 shoots an intermediate cartridge. Which is...
Your Honor, are you retarded? And the reason the judge had brought that up is because the pro-gun lawyer had also said that the AR-15 is underpowered, and he was on his way to explain compared to other rifles,
right?
Which isn't an irrelevant point,
right?
I think if you're going to, I guess I'll back up and say, if you're going to argue that the AR-15 is useful for self-defense, please do not then go and argue it's underpowered. That's a conflicting statement. Even underpowered compared to other rifles, I don't think that does you any good. I think you could say that
it's also like the real point is firearms are available in different chamberings.
Right.
And the individual can choose the one that works best for them. In fact, the AR-15 is available in all of them.
I think that's the most coherent argument. But if you're trying to make it more specific, I think you would go with the AR-15 is good for self-defense. It's more powerful than a handgun, more useful than a handgun because it kills people quicker, which is what you want in a self-defense situation. You don't want to kill them slow.
I would never get bogged into that, get dragged into that mire. I would just say there are reasons to choose it, and there are reasons to choose other guns. Right. Just like there's reasons to choose particular cars.
And so the reason he set this judge off by saying it's underpowered, and the judge just blurts out like, "Underpowered." And he was like, "What's underpowered compared to other?" But by the time you've already been interrupted, and of course, I don't think that pro-gun lawyers should have to account for the fact that there are extremely hostile judges that think the Second Amendment doesn't exist. Because what are you going to do?
Right.
You can't really do anything about it, really, because you can push back, but you can't say, "Hey, retard, stop being a fucking idiot." The judges don't like it when you do that.
They're like, "Oh, you're stupid. I'm the lawyer in the dress.
Respect my robe." But I did at least want to make the point that, like, hey, if you're if you're a lawyer in one of these groups or what have you, and you're interested in taking your craft seriously, right? Like if you were a lawyer representing NASCAR driving, like the NASCAR Policy Coalition or whatever, I would expect that you know how to drive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that
perhaps you'd know to start the vehicle.
It's just sat somewhere near a NASCAR.
Smelled it.
Maybe. Smelled it, maybe. Know which end the gas goes in, maybe.
Right.
So these sort of things I think are important. I don't think they're necessary, but I think that it's like if you're serious about winning and you're serious about the arguments that you're making, I think it's important that you like are invested in the thing you're not even invested so much as educated in the thing that you're advocating for.
I'd say invested. I'd say you should have
invested is good. Invested is good, but at the very least, whenever you're asked like, "Have you shot a gun?" you don't go, "Huh?
No.
What?
No, I'm scared."
Like it's because if anything else, it makes it sound like you're informed or know what you're talking about, which I think is important.
Then they bully you,
right? Because I mean they're going to bully you either way, but at least this way you can take your lickings and be like, don't think so, actually.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with as testy as the judges were being, I don't think it would have been out of place to be, Your Honor, when was the last time you shot an M16? Like 50 years ago, you old fuck. Not the old fuck part, but be like, when's the last time you shot one? Is it possible your memory's not there?
You can't ask that. You can't. But anyway, the point's well made. The point's well made. Anyway, you know what else is well made? FFLpaymentprocessing.com, guys. It's FFL Payment Solutions by FFL for FFL and for any other related businesses, guys. It doesn't matter if you don't have an FFL. You should be taking credit cards. You should call up FFL Payment Processing. Go on, hit get rates. Friendly person will talk to you. They'll show you exactly what you're paying right now through your current processor, and they'll show you what you would be paying if you go through FFL Payments. It's great people. I'm personally involved with these people, and I can tell you, I run them on my e-commerce platform, and I saved a ton of money. On top of that, if you want to talk about saving money, if you tell them that old Uncle Buster sent you, you mentioned Fudd Busters, you will get free terminals. Free terminals. That's a big value. So guys, FFLpaymentprocessing.com, tell them old Uncle Buster sent you. Don't actually say Uncle Buster. They are not trained to look for that. They Fudd Busters. But yeah, guys, FFLpaymentprocessing.com. This next story is I don't think we'll spend too much time on it, but it's an interesting point, and it's like it's not directly gun related, but I guess we have to live in the Overton area we're in, and notable events are inextricably currently related to guns. So it was this was the 2021 Oxford High School, Michigan shooting. The parents had two trials and wound up with 2 convictions. Jennifer Crumbly and James Crumbly were each found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, which I think it's kind of a stretch of that common law crime, but they were found guilty in their son, in connection to their son's mass shooting. I don't know. What do you think about this?
So I will preface by saying I watched none of this live. I watched very little analysis until after the convictions, at which point I was like, yo, what the fuck? So I watched a video that just sort of summarized the evidence. After getting an understanding of what evidence really factored into the convictions, I don't like it's much easier to see how this happened, because the parents really didn't like secure the gun, and they knew their kid was a little bit like off the chain, right? Like a little goofy, quirked up white boy. They knew that he had different vibes.
He was a goofy.
They had just bought this gun, and they had like taken him to shoot it, and they made sure that he knew how to use it, all while knowing he is like not doing great mentally. And so there was enough evidence there to show that like it wasn't it wasn't just like accidental, like, ooh, we couldn't have seen this coming. It sort of rose to the point that like this was pretty darn negligent, which is sort of the decision, right, necessarily involved with the conviction, is like they actually did something wrong.
Yeah, no, so like manslaughter is necessary in the common law context, right? It's different in because states have their own definitions and they change it, but in the common law context, it's almost never intentional, right? And it involves activity that is either like severely negligent or wanton. And wantonness is the type of negligence where it just like manifests an absolute disregard for human life. And so that's the type of proof that you've got to go on to secure a conviction like this, especially involving a third party. Right. So the dad's trial was focused on him, actually he acquired the gun, right, and how he treated the gun. And the mom's was because she is the one who had all the information about him being, perhaps even too cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So, it's an interesting situation. I don't know about it, right? But it's something that I'm not going to say. I'm not going to sit here and say it's like absolutely wrong or whatever. Just to me, it seems like, okay, I'll say it this way. If there's a edge, right, to involve manslaughter, this has to be somewhere close to it. Right?
It has to be pretty. I think it. I agree that it has to be awfully close.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's necessarily beyond the scope, but I'm saying it's probably really close to the edge. But yeah, don't just generally don't do that. I'd say, generally don't have, wild ass kids. And it does kind of suck though, because it kind of stands for the proposition that if you do have a kid who's, a little Fruit Loopy, it means there's implications for your
right to have a gun. Yeah.
Right to have a gun. But there's been many cases that means that there's implications for your right to have a car. There's been cases where people were found liable for, leaving car keys out when there was like a known serial bad driver.
Serial enjoys to drive whenever he's had a few. Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I kind of don't want to talk anymore about that because it's a little too interesting and also very sad, just because of just how horrible what happened was. So next, let's talk about another horrible, tragic loss of life. An executive of the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport, which what a lovely airport, was shot by ATF agents during a raid at his home, and he has died now. And of course, you might be thinking, well, how did this airport executive wind up getting into a shootout with the authority? Well, he didn't. It was that they were trying to serve a warrant, and as they do when they're serving warrants, they get excited, and they said that there was an exchange of gunfire, and we don't have all of the evidence, but I'm going to assume that perhaps one side of the exchange was an acorn, but this is, it's pretty terrible. And, I'll be interested to see what comes out further, because.
So the warrant I just saw was online right before the show.
Oh,
the warrant was because he was suspected of dealing firearms without a license.
Oh, that's a good reason to shoot.
Their evidence of this is like he'd bought 100 guns or whatever in the past year, and 3 guns that had been transferred into him. So whenever they ran a bunch of traces, like all of the guns he was buying were new, more or less, and that 3 of the guns that had been able to be traced to him ended up being used in a crime. So he was a sort of missing link there, and so they were like, if 3 out of 100 is in a crime, then maybe there should have been background checks or something. So It was time to go and fuck with this guy's whole life, which is
it's time to search his house.
It's time to search his house. There's certainly a better way for them to have approached this. I don't know and I guess this is just the problem with cops, right? Is they have the toys, and so they want to use, like, they want to flashbang people, and they want to show up with their short barrel guns, and they want to kick down doors and do cool guy stuff.
They do love doing the shit, by the way, and that's not me being like disingenuous and a cop hater or whatever. No, I've met a lot of these people. They
like doing it.
They like doing this. They really like it.
Because they get to do their whole, like, it's just like a video game or whatever. Like, they get to do their loadout and who's going to do what, and you're going to go here, and then you're gonna pin him down, and I'm going to fuck his ass.
You know what's what's funny? A lot of ATF agents like are gun guys, but they're gun guys that are like, no, I want to use the gun. Like they're gun guys who want to like they have fantasies. and they're just not too concerned about who is using it. But that, like, this kind of exemplifies that, like, a search warrant does not have to be something that is served violently.
Right, because because they're thought with violent offenders, right? Is it gives them times to arm themselves. If they're a kidnapper, maybe, or if they're a drug dealer, they're gonna put the drugs down they're gonna swallow the drugs with their toilet, and so they have to, like, move quick or whatever.
Yeah, so this guy was they have to worry because he was going to swallow all his guns.
From everything I read, there was no showing where it was like, yeah, this guy's going to disappear all of the guns. He's going to set fire to all of his gun sale. Like, they have all the gun sale records because he bought almost all of these guns from Gunbroker. They had proof that he got them.
So that's why they killed him.
Right. I don't know what's really gained by their behavior in this manner, as opposed to, like, if next time he left, right, they know where he works. If they just visited him at work, right, because he's got to go to work. They just visit him at work and be like, yo, we need to talk to you.
Yeah.
We need to see if we can trick you into admitting that you knew you should have had a license, or we think that you think that we think that you know that you should have maybe had a license. You think maybe.
There's also the funny thing that they love doing these by surprise in the middle of the night. And everybody knows that when your door gets kicked in the middle of the night, it's the police that are here to do a nice polite to you.
Yeah, they're here. It's the police, of course, and the police are here to do a nice check, and it's definitely the real police.
Yeah, which is why it's also why they very much enjoy not knocking or announcing.
Or they flashbang first, deafen you, and start screaming police, so you're deaf.
Yeah. It all makes perfect sense.
Police.
It all makes perfect sense, and this is just the cost of living in a free society. If you want freedom, you're gonna have to die for it somehow. I don't know. This is absurd, but, like, we'll be looking into this, and I do like the a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor said it was concerning that the ATF didn't, at the time of this publication, release any information about why the agents were at the home. He says, I think the more concerning thing is that they still haven't released any info about what they were even doing out there for a 6 a.m. raid. You know how fast the U.S. Attorney's Office love a press conference? Normally, they would have already justified it with a copy of the warrant. Still nothing. There must have been probable cause to believe that there was evidence of some crime inside the residence, thus the need to execute a search warrant at that location. The attorney noted that calls for de-escalation would likely have saved lives or life. And then the attorney says, it's not that I dislike the ATF, but we've got some bad carrots that are just screwing things up for everybody else. And unfortunately, they're causing damage. It's a way to put it mildly. Yeah. But I think this shows, like, if anything, this could be a wake-up call that, like, to, the elites and the Illuminati, right, that it can happen to you. This guy owned 5 homes and made somewhere between $250,000 and $280,000 a year, and was responsible for 2,000 employees. So it could happen to anybody.
Yep.
And so this, let's hope some good comes out of it and people are held responsible. Anyway, next up, we've got MAF Corporation, guys. It's important to check out MAF Corporation. There is a sale always if you use the code FUDDBUSTERS. That's FUDDBUSTERS. Gotta check it out. Big sale on AK kits head-spaced, very much reduced price. Look at that. $6.99 US for a head-spaced chrome hammer forged barrel and all that. You got to check it out. A lot of good deals available for you on maf-arms.com. Use promotional code FUDBusters to get a discount on your order. Oh God, this is good. All right, next story.
Fantastic.
Speaking of Chicago again, how could it be? How could it be that they come up 3 times? It must be a coincidence. They're suing Glock because Glock has encouraged a proliferation of machine guns into the city of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes without saying, right? Glock sold the design for Chinese switches and then put them all over Temu. And then somehow, right? I mean, connect the dots, right? Follow the money. All that money is definitely not going straight to the Chinese government.
The case is, of course, for those who didn't pick up on it, he jests. This case is actually interesting and maybe worth reading if you're legally curious. I've read about 75% of it and then I got bored. It's somewhat interesting. Essentially, what they're trying to do here is novel. They're using Illinois' Gun Industry Liability Act, like Accountability Act. So it's essentially they're like, we can sue in state court gun companies for doing a big public unsafety nuisance thing. And so they're doing something weird where they're trying to allege that the readily restored and or designed and converted to be a machine gun language under federal law can be mushed together to create a new definition that's readily convertible, which isn't a thing.
Which is not.
However,
to be clear,
they're stopping just short of saying that's what it is. They're saying, oh, it's like that, because if they say it is, this case gets removed to federal court to answer that question. But they're not saying it is. They're like, this is what it looks like. It sure seems like that.
So the press release says the lawsuit alleges that Glock unreasonably endangers Chicagoans by manufacturing and selling in the Chicago civilian market semi-automatic pistols that can easily be converted to illegal machine guns with an autosphere, a cheap, small device commonly known as a Glock switch. So there says easily be converted.
Yes.
And that's like, that's the theory of liability here. The lawsuit alleges that Glock knows it could fix the problem, but refuses to do so. And the city is seeking a court order requiring Glock to cease sales of these pistols, which are easily converted, which is any standard striker Glock, to Chicago civilians. And they also seek penalties against Glock and damages for the harm that Glock has caused to the city by selling through China and through free distribution of 3D printable files, these into Chicago.
The issue is because this is going to turn in state court and turn on that industry liability law.
Right.
This lawsuit actually stands a greater than, like, you reading this lawsuit, you're probably like, what the fuck? This is just like another frivolous lawsuit that the anti-gunners are doing just to cause trouble. The problem is they've got a much greater than 0% chance of success, especially because they're going to sue in Illinois state court in Chicago. And the judges, essentially across the board are ravenously anti-gun. Right. And then if it gets up to the Illinois State Supreme Court, like 4 of the members of the court are like members of Moms Demand Action or Everytown or whatever. Like half of the court is beholden to the anti-gun groups. Like there's one way that the decision goes once it gets up to the Illinois State Supreme Court. So it's like massively concerning in that regard. And it's like we've talked about multiple times now on the show. It's the continued abuse of the state, these anti-gun states passing industry liability laws. And again, I think the closest analog would be, if pro-gun states wanted to play like really cool baseball, they'd pass a liability law where if somebody got killed in like a home invasion or something, they pass a liability law that says that anybody who advocated for legislation that prevented this person from being able to defend themselves is liable for their death, which is like 0% chance that that's actually okay to do. But it would take them a while to actually hash out that that's not okay to do,
right?
As will be done with these gun industry things, where like they just come up with like the most bizarre ways to make these anti-gun groups financially responsible in some manner for everything that happens in the state. And of course, because effectively that's what these anti-gun coalitions are doing with these liability laws that they help these states stand up.
Yeah, no, they're literally attacking private industry, because who cares, right? Oh, it's just a big company, right? And their whole theory is we can trip them up really hard for a few years.
We can attack enough of these soulless companies that the right to keep and bear arms goes away because nobody can make guns, and also they will then go after separately and in fact it's not even necessarily separately. If they go after companies that just sell gun parts, so like it's not like you could buy a gun or make a gun. You can do nothing. You can have no Second Amendment right.
But so talking about this from a legal perspective, this is the reason it's interesting and why Ivan says that it's a non-zero percent chance of winning. When you invert the state of the law and you redefine what a nuisance is, you have to it's like changing how pieces work on a chessboard. And you just start at the beginning of the thing, you say, actually, pawns can go 3 times. Right? Can move 3 spaces. That fundamentally changes the whole game. Right? So here, if we presuppose that sale of normal, right, like legal firearms is not protected by the PLCAA, right? If we've gotten around the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, it means that we can apply traditional theories of products liability to a firearm. And products liability includes things where you're aware of a defect, right? The defect is a propensity to cause harm, and it wouldn't cost, like, the burden of fixing that defect, right, is less than the burden of fixing the defect is less than or equal to the gravity of the harm multiplied by the probability of the harm. That's the Lerner-Hand formula. So that's what you have to deal with in a situation like this. You have even less protection in the traditional products liability context if the resulting improper use of your product is a nuisance, because there's almost no protection for nuisances at the common law. So what we've done here is we've gotten ourselves back into traditional products liability, and then 2, redefined common law nuisance to just say, by the way, automatically you get nuisance points, if you can allege these things. And so then they've alleged those things. So it really is legally interesting because basically they're cheating.
Right.
And but even with the cheating, it's not clear that they win. It takes what would be a complete loser of the case, because even in the traditional products liability standpoint, you're not responsible for criminal misuse of your products.
Right.
But if we delete that common law rule, well, now we have to, we got to that common law rule through 800 years of legal tradition. It didn't happen all at once. It happened over time. Well, now we start back at square zero. That's why this is interesting. And it's also why everything is so terrible.
Yes.
Because when you define terms of art that have had definitions for hundreds of years and just say it means I win, it just fucks the whole game up. Right? So.
And I mean, that was something that the Protection for Lawful Commerce in Arms Act was meant to forestall, this exact sort of thing. But the way that they've reinvented the game here is specifically meant to get around the Protection for Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And for the record, is the reason that PLACA happened. The reason it happened is because it was anticipated, right? It was anticipated that this sort of thing would happen, and it just took the anti-gunners till now to figure out a way to get around it. Figure out, like,
they had started, but it was like, sporadic,
right?
But now they're like, wait, what if we did that?
Right.
What if that was our thing?
And I know some people will say, like, oh, but Glock did make it so it was harder to convert their guns with the Gen 5. Well, the Gen 5 has a feature on it that's meant to try and deny putting an auto steer on. I guess because it's YouTube, I won't say, but no, it doesn't. I won't say what you have to do, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah. But also the other thing is, guys, self-loading firearms want to go fast.
Yep.
They want to do that.
I mean, there are contrary examples, but sort of as a rule, something that is already self-loading has most of the hard work already done.
Right.
Like there are exceptions to that. Like, I think the 1911 is a pretty good exception.
Right.
It's really hard to make a 1911 actually full auto unless you do some fuck shit where it's like the hammer sear engagement is so low that when the slide slam shuts, the hammer just usually falls off the sear. Yeah. Like that you can do. That's also not safe or reliable. It's not like an actually good conversion.
Right. God. No, that's. But yeah, so that's super, super interesting. You know what else is super, super interesting? Skill issue. 16 injured in explosion at FBI training facility in Irvine, California.
Officer Town, rest and piss won't be missed. Smoking that FBI pack.
Yeah, 16 people were injured during an explosion at an FBI training facility in Southern California city of Irvine. Orange County Sheriff's Department deputies were using the facility on Magazine Road when the incident occurred a little before 1 p.m. 13 of the injuries were related to the noise of the blast, resulting in the victim suffering from dizziness and ear pain. 2 of the injuries were to victim's legs, one of whom required surgery. He had to go to hospital. Another person suffered a back injury, but will not require surgery. I wonder what they was getting up to.
I wonder if they just set off a flashbang indoors.
100% that's what they did. They set off a flashbang. They were like, yeah, no. The incident occurred during a joint training exercise between OCSD's bomb squad and SWAT teams, and the explosion happened inside of a small building on FBI property. The device was part of the training. As far as what they were doing when it happened, I don't know. Dudes banged themselves.
Because I feel like they would have said critical condition if the surgery was bad. Like, needing surgery is like, you have a little bit of shrapnel that's deep enough in there. They're like, yeah, we can probably get that out.
Yeah, let's just yoink on that.
Like, if it was like somebody fragged their buddies, I think it would be more than 13 people wouldn't be feeling. Like 13 people wouldn't just be, oh, my eardrums.
Ow, ow, ow.
And I feel like you'd have a person in critical condition at that point. But
yeah, no, but so yeah, they definitely bang themselves. That's what I'm going to call it. Which is funny because now they know what it feels like.
Or I guess it could have been like a breaching thing. They det corded themselves just a little bit too close to the spicy rope.
That's funny. All right, guys. Last up on this extra long episode, it's Patriot Patch Company. Guys, Patriot Patch Co. is got custom designed patches, apparel, and accessories for any freedom-loving individual, and they are also the longest time supporter of the show. They are intrinsically intertwined with This Week in Guns, so you gotta show them your support. Let's look at what's up on the Patch of the Month Club. Last time, it was all luck, no skill. It's still that. Okay. Limited run patch and sticker. You sign up to the Patch of the Month Club. Every month for $15, you get a nice little endorphin rush in your mailbox. I had mine right here, but Sam cleaned my desk off. I love and hate it when she does that. But yeah, guys, patriotpatch.co. Check it out. They got a bunch of cool cleaning mats and all kind of other stuff, and they have consistently been a supporter of the show. So give them your hard-earned dollar, and also give it to me. Speaking of which, if you join the Fuddbusters Patreon, you too can send me art that I will then put up behind me in a video, potentially. Not saying that's ever happened, but it's an option.
Some people may be observant enough to notice that if it did happen, it would.
But all right, guys, that's it for today. As always, thank you so much for coming, and we will see you next time.
Hasta fuego, mi amigos.
Hasta fuego.